Giulietta, it's an important car because it is pivotal to the existence of a company and a brand and an image and a set of values. Alfa Romeo was a company before the war that really dominated motor racing and were at the very pointy end of automotive engineering in so many ways. Throughout the 30s there were 4 Le Mans victories, a second place overall, numerous sports car victories, Grand Prix engines, famous Grand Prix wins. And when the war came, as things changed very much, the devastation that spread across northern Italy also devastated Alfa Romeo. What effectively the company had to do to continue to not just to exist but to thrive was to take everything that was a value pre-war that made them what they were and harness them into new cars that would keep people interested in new ways. And of course, technologically, what World War II did for cars was it basically developed what engineers knew and tested it.
Because a lot of the stuff from the mid-50s was still had hang-ons from just post-war period, whereas this thing's really moved forward, lightness of design, dynamic handling, light engine, modern techniques, casting techniques, all of these things make it feel like a much newer car.
There were so many brands that did not figure out how to reinvent themselves post-war. Bugatti disappeared, Hispano Suiza disappeared. There were scores of companies that built wonderful cars, won lots of races, became incredibly famous, that vanished because either they were obliterated, or as a result of turning their efforts into the war effort and building things like trucks and aeroplane engines instead of cars, they saw a different path. But they were all of a sudden having to rebuild a company with the values and the attitudes and the beliefs of before, and they had to make sure their spirits weren't broken. They united, they took new lessons, put it all into a series of cars that was a gamble. But, once that car rolled out in 1954 at the Turin Motor Show and the public, swarmed around it, here was a car that was, small by dimension, modest in price, with a spec sheet that showed that it was an exciting car to drive, and bearing in mind that a few years earlier, this was the same company that had become the first world champions of Formula One. They were the first stamp of the template that they then went on to create 3 or 4 generations of cars with.